How do you cope when your parent blames you for their failed life? I don't think there's anything heavier than realizing the person who gave you life also wishes you hadn't changed theirs. My mom never came right out and said, "You ruined my life," but she didn't have to. She said it in sighs, in the way her eyes glazed over when she looked at me, in the way she talked about her past like it was a ghost she could never bury, because I was the grave it was buried in. She was 19 when she had me, bright, beautiful, studying art, working part-time at a cafe, dreaming of leaving our small town and moving to the city. Then she met my dad, the kind of guy who made promises faster than he could keep them. By 20, she was pregnant. By 21, she was married. By 22, she was divorced. And by 23, she had me, and nothing else. Growing up, I didn't understand any of this. To me, she was just mom, the woman who made pancakes on Sundays and sang off-key when she cleaned. She was funny, even when life wasn't. But as I got older, the light in her started to flicker. It started with little things. I'd ask her what her dreams used to be, and she'd say, "You don't need to know that. Dreams are for people who have time." If I asked about my dad, she'd laugh without smiling. He got to walk away, I didn't. By the time I was 13, I noticed how tired she looked. Not the kind of tired sleep could fix, but the kind that came from years of swallowing resentment. Then one night it slipped out. We were fighting because I'd forgotten to wash the dishes. She was working 2 jobs. I was a teenager who thought I had it rough. She was yelling. I was yelling back. And then she just stopped, stared at me like I'd said something unforgivable, and whispered, "You took everything from me." The silence that followed was deafening. She didn't even shout. She just walked away, leaving me standing there with soap on my hands and something sharp in my chest that never really healed. After that, everything changed. Every argument came with the same undertone, that I was the reason she never finished college, never left town, never remarried. When I did something good, she said, "Must be nice having all those choices I never got." When I made a mistake, she said, "Figures. You get that from your father." I started working part-time at 16 to ease the bills. I told myself if I could just help enough, maybe she'd be proud of me again. I bought groceries, paid for my own school supplies, even saved up for her birthday. I remember that day clearly. I came home with a small gift, a silver bracelet engraved with, "For everything you gave up for me." I wanted her to see that I knew that I appreciated it. She stared at it for a long time, then said, "You think this fixes it? You think I wanted a bracelet? I wanted my life back." She didn't raise her voice. That somehow made it worse. I cried in my room that night, quietly, because I didn't want her to hear me. I realized that love wasn't always enough to erase regret. After that, I stopped trying to make her proud. I stopped telling her about my grades, my scholarships, the college I got into. When graduation came, she didn't come to the ceremony, said she had to work. Later, my aunt told me she stayed home that day. Couldn't bring herself to watch me walk across that stage when she never got to. That broke something in me. I left home a few months later. She called it abandoning her. I called it breathing. But even after leaving, her voice lived in my head. Every time I succeeded, a whisper, "Must be nice." Every time I failed, another, "You're just like your father." Her words had become ghosts that followed me into every new chapter. It took years, therapy, distance, and nights crying into my pillow to understand something important. My mom wasn't a villain. She was a woman who got stuck between who she wanted to be and who life forced her to become. And I was the reminder of that. Every time she looked at me, she saw the fork in the road where her dreams had died. I used to think forgiveness meant pretending it didn't hurt, but real forgiveness is seeing the wound clearly and choosing not to carry it forever. When I visited her years later, she'd aged faster than I expected. Her hair was streaked with silver, her hands trembled slightly as she poured tea. She asked about my job, my apartment, my life, things she never used to care about. And then softly, she said something I'll never forget. "You remind me of who I could have been, and I'm sorry I made you carry that." It wasn't a grand apology, but it was honest, and maybe that's all I ever needed. Now, when people ask me how I cope, I tell them this: you stop trying to fix the parent who broke you. You love them for who they are, not who you needed them to be. And you build a life they can't take credit for, but can still be proud of. Because sometimes the most powerful way to heal is to stop living in someone else's regret and start writing your own piece.